So one of the viewers got in touch and said, do you know they make these great little replacement lights for the little spot lamps that are in the van, and they've got 2 USB ports on them as well, and also a dimmer control, because they're talking about the lights being really bright. So what we're going to do is replace these ones that we've already got up in the corner and swap these over. Not replacing all of them, I'm replacing 2 at the back, and then at the front over the diner area there are none in there, so I'm going to put 1 in there at the moment. You know, like I say, it's quite dark in that area, so figured 1 of these in there, add a bit of light. So that's job number 1, so let's get on with it. So in our van, where we've got the light underneath, there's some wiring at the top there, quite accessible. Basically they've put this little panel in there to cover all the wiring up. Now it does mean that there's a pretty deep void at the bottom of the cupboard, unfortunately, but at least wires can pass through there. So I'm just going to disconnect those 2 wires there, which lead down to that light, and then the new light there has got these 2 wires with it, and I'll just reconnect those back into there, and then screw this one in place, and then job done on that side, and then just move over and do that one then. So inside the light you've got this little plate here, screw that to the top, and then all that happens is there are 3 points on there that fits in, twists round, and that locks into place. So all we're going to do now is just find the best place to screw that in, so that when it twists round, that none of those USB are kind of like facing the wall or facing the back or anything like that, so they're all in the right place. That's it now fitted. Obviously this side I had the problem whereby that was in there the way there, which is the Truma heating system internal temperature sensor. So I've had to kind of work around that to make sure then that the USB sockets on either side are actually easily accessible, so that's all right. Then you've obviously got the light themselves with a nice little power switch on, and then the dimmer on the back there, which might not show up because obviously the camera will adjust to the light, and these are permanently wired into the battery, so whenever all your 12-volt electrics are on, they're on as well. They're not sort of wired into the lighting system. So over in the back here, you remember this one was just a single socket, and it was that type, so it's like the aerial and the TV and things like that. However, it wasn't actually wired in for the aerial. There's no wiring there whatsoever. So what I've done is I've changed it over for just one of those next to that, and then I'll put the double plate over the top of it, so at least then it's just a bit more matched in. There's no kind of TV socket which pretends to be receiving an aerial connection when there's just no wiring in there at all. So you can see that's from the top of the cupboard there. There are no cables in there at all for a TV aerial. Yeah, just all it is the mains wires, the 240, and then 12 volts for the lighting and the cigarette socket. So that's it really. That's just a little modification to make in that corner, just to make it look a bit better. Run into a bit of an issue, which is why this video has taken so long to edit, is because halfway through the work I was doing, the microphone packed up on the camera. So this is what I have on all my clips. So we're now back at the... So no matter which clip I choose from this point on, you get a bit of audio and then it cuts off. So I'm going to do a bit of voiceover on this. I'm going to play the videos out and I'm going to do some voiceover. So if you see my lips moving, and the words don't match up, I apologize, but this is the only way to kind of recover from what I think is actually a really good video. Essentially, the premise for the second task here is that our van came with a fixed kind of table in a certain way. The leg is fixed to it, although it can move along a rail at the side of the van, and then it's got a swivel part that comes out from underneath it. However, if you have passengers, the table doesn't move out of the way enough that the passengers can sit down comfortably. And because of the fixed leg of the table, it means you cannot stow it anywhere in the van. It's just too big and bulky. So what I actually did was bought a folding table leg off a, make yourself a campervan kind of table kind of thing. And then I proceeded to take ours apart and then basically convert it so that it had this, like I say, swinging or folding table leg underneath it. So let's get back to the video, and like I say, everything's going to be a bit of a voiceover work for now. Hopefully it'll still make sense. So let's get back in there. So I started off by removing the table leg, several screws on there, and then a plate underneath it that allowed both the swivel part of the table and the main part of the table to be connected to the table leg, but still allowing the the smaller piece to swivel around. So that had to all come off, and then after that it was just a case of putting on the new folding arm or the folding leg, and then just kind of like work out its placement, and then going through the process of working out the height that it needed to sit at, the angle, and where it actually came down to the floor as well, to make sure that it slid backwards and forwards properly, and obviously it sat on the floor in the right place. So the next problem that I ran into was something that obviously I'd not really calculated this all. It was just kind of like a rough thing. The new table leg, the folding table leg, is shorter than the old table leg because of the swiveling part of the table in the middle. The next problem I ran into was when I mounted the arm in the middle of the table, when you slid it backwards and forward, it started to catch on part of the van. What I worked out is that the table leg obviously got like a T-piece at the bottom, really wide bottom base to it. So what I did was cut those pieces off and then attach them to the bottom of the table leg to raise the height of the leg. And that really got a perfect height and everything works perfectly. Bearing in mind, obviously this is a bodge, so at a later stage I've gone and sorted all this out, but at the time I just need to make sure that proof of concept, it all worked, and get everything the right height, and so it all worked as best as possible. So that's how closely I measured it. So at least it comes all the way over there. It can't move any further, so the back there is as far as it's going to go. And at least when it's all done there, it's just about touching there, and it also meets just on the edge. So it's just touching the edge of the seat, and it's just on the edge of the platform there. So it gives us the best use of space underneath there now without any table leg in the way. So really happy about that. And obviously, yeah, nice and sturdy. So yeah, really happy. So the second part of this table kind of like maintenance process was the fact that when you slid the table backwards forward on the rail, it was really stiff. And kind of what I worked out was the rail that they'd kind of like screwed in, they hadn't actually thought about the fact that they were mounting it to the backboard, which had a really soft surface on it. So as they screwed it into the backboard, what that meant was the screwed parts kind of went in further and left hardly any gap for the little rail system to operate with the table going along it, for the plastic parts of the rail to slide up and down quite freely. So my second part of this was to put some washers behind the screws part of that rail, just to make the rail stand proud of the back plate, just to give it more space to slide up and down. So that's what it now looks like. You can just about see the washers behind there. And on that side, so you can just about see the washers behind there, but they have made enough of a difference that you can see that they're not really rubbing anymore. They're touching, but they're not rubbing, and I can get my finger all the way down the back there. So yeah, very happy about that solution. Some people that have got these fixed kind of swiveling parts to the, you know, the dinette table or whatever like that, it doesn't really make it such a great table, especially if you can't then kind of stow it away. I mean, another thought process I had, which was to kind of like go stage further on what I've done, which is to put 2 folding legs either side, just keep one permanently folded underneath what's in the van where the hinge is towards the side of the wall, but then the concept of the other folding leg is then, you know, that I can actually use the table outside the van, so I can take it outside, use the other leg, and then it kind of like works in both scenarios then. So maybe manufacturers need to think about that as well. But yeah, if you like that content, think somebody else might be interested in what I've done here, then do share it with them. Give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care now. Bye.